My name is Emily Robb.
My name is Kayla Gilmore.
And my name is Joey Bernardo. The topic of this presentation is ESG reporting. We will be addressing issues related to the relevance and reliability of current standards, as well as considering whether more or less regulation is needed. First, I will give a brief explanation about what ESG reporting is and why it has gained popularity in recent years. Then, Emily will consider the relevance of financial reporting and SEC regulations. I will then focus on intangible assets and the impact they have on not only ESG reporting, but also accounting reliability and the value of a firm. Kayla will then discuss some key commonalities and differences across industries in relation to which integrated reporting framework is used and what the areas of focus are. Following Kayla's discussion, we will all provide suggestions moving forward for how we think the SEC can fairly implement ESG reporting. I would like to give a brief overview of what ESG reporting is. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. Environmental relates to how a company addresses and responds to environmental factors such as emissions, climate change, and pollution. Social relates to interactions with both employees and clients. A key term in this area that we will focus on is human capital. The governance portion of ESG reporting relates to business structure, strategy, and overall attitude of management. Recently, investors have become aware that these factors can have a significant impact on a firm's value. Because of this realization, most companies report on these ESG topics. Currently, there is no authoritative regulation on these reports, which questions both the accounting relevance and reliability. Emily will now provide more insight as to whether the SEC should get involved and if the current financial reporting regulations are still relevant.
Are the current SEC regulations still relevant to active market participants? Yes. The first thing to understand is who active market participants are and what they care about. More than 50 years ago, approximately 80% of US corporate stock was owned by individual investors in taxable accounts. Using data from the Federal Reserve, experts estimate that taxable accounts now only hold 25% of corporate stock. Now, most investment decisions are made by money managers who have fiduciary responsibility to the investors of their funds. Active market participants must consider both the quantitative and qualitative information available when they make investment decisions. Therefore, audited financial statements as well as ESG reports are extremely important. We believe that relevance and reliability of accounting information are intertwined. ESG reporting and financial reporting tend to overlap. Environmental, social, and governance factors all tie into future projections. These projections stem from baseline information provided in audited financial statements. As a result, for ESG reports to be reliable, the financial reports must also be reliable and vice versa. The lack of authoritative guidance on ESG reporting is creating the potential for lack of reliability in both quantitative and qualitative reporting. This leads to the necessary push for standards regarding ESG reporting. Part of the mission of FASB is to establish and improve financial accounting and reporting standards to provide useful information to investors. As of right now, FASB is not upholding their mission because they are not requiring companies to provide all useful information to investors in a reliable manner. As the authoritative body, FASB needs to establish a proactive approach to trends and enact guidance accordingly. It is now time to think in advance to determine what the next best step is to ensure that corporate reporting is reliable as well as relevant. In summary, for investors to trust both ESG and financial reporting, some level of assurance must be present. At a minimum, FASB must issue standards to reduce the risk of investors being misled. Audited reports are still instrumental to maintaining investor confidence. This information acts as a baseline to a company's current performance as investors are now shifting a portion of their focus to ESG issues to estimate future performance. The SEC must act quickly to make sure investor decision-making is based on reliable information that is not susceptible to bias from management. This baseline of regulations can allow investors to feel more secure about their decisions predicated on ESG reports. The purpose of regulations is not to make things more laborious for internal and external accounting services, but to provide investors with useful information.
Similar to the change in mindset of active market participants, the mindset of companies has been shifting in recent years. In the past, intangible assets made up a small portion of a company's market value. That number has been rising quickly. To explain how intangible assets can impact firm value and how they relate to ESG reporting, it is important to understand what an intangible asset is. Intangible assets have no physical form. For example, a computer is a tangible asset. It has a physical existence. It can be touched. The rights to a patent or trademark, on the other hand, have no physical form. While you can hold the piece of paper that describes your patent, the asset is not piece of paper. It is the rights set forth on the piece of paper. Intangible assets are non-monetary. They are not traditional monetary items such as a dollar bill or credit transactions. Some examples of intangible assets include software, trademarks, copyrights, and cryptocurrency. Accurately valuing these types of assets can be difficult. According to one expert, Ocean Tomo, intangible assets now make up nearly 90% of the market value of companies in the S&P 500. This is a near 60% increase from 1985. Current valuation methods focus on the difference between book value and market value. Because the market value of newer intangible assets such as cryptocurrency are so volatile, a company's value is likely to be either over or understated at any given time. Recent trends have shown intangible assets are here to stay and are becoming a significant part of success in terms of both financial and sustainability reporting. Along with cryptocurrency, human capital and intellectual property have drawn a lot of attention from investors. Human capital is defined as the economic value of an employee's experience, skills, and knowledge accumulated throughout their career. Because of its increased relevance, valuation methods have become an area of focus. The Sustainability Accounting Standards Board published a Human Capital Bulletin, which provides an overview of human capital-related topics and metrics in SASB standards to assist companies in preparing human capital-related disclosures. Intellectual property is commonly viewed as a component of human capital. Human capital is the economic value of an employee's contributions. Intellectual property is created through these contributions in the form of copyrights, trademarks, and patents. From a human capital standpoint, companies are hiring specialists to assess sustainability. In other words, is the company going to be able to continue to operate in relation to external factors such as emissions, climate change, and availability of raw materials? From an intellectual property standpoint, companies have been investing millions of dollars on developing a more sustainable value chain. Combined, these two factors have a direct impact on a firm's going concern. For example, think of Tesla as scientists. What would happen to the organization if the best scientists left to work for another car company? What would happen if Tesla developed employee programs that kept and motivated employees to perform at their best? Knowing how Tesla performs with regards to its social impact gives investors a clearer picture into Tesla's future. When evaluating the impact intangible assets have on a firm, it is important to consider how the value is created. As stated in the Integrated Reporting Framework, value is created over different time horizons and for different stakeholders through different capitals. All intangible assets create value for a firm. Specifically, human capital and intellectual property are difficult to value due to the immeasurability of employees' future contributions. Because of their ties to ESG reporting, human capital and intellectual property can also have an impact on investors' attitudes. Therefore, it is important for companies who are reporting on ESG and sustainability to be transparent with investors on both current and future projections. On many occasions, a company may be vague if there is an event that will have a negative impact on the firm. Due to the lack of current authoritative guidance in this area, investors need to ask themselves, what am I not being told?
When investors are asking themselves this question, they are basically asking the question, what do these basic frameworks report and not report? How do they compare and contrast with one another? Tesla and Bank of America both use the United Nations ESG framework. Bank of America, along with the Home Depot, also uses SASB and the TCFD frameworks. These companies most likely chose these frameworks because of how they align with their main focuses and priorities. Tesla's report focuses on its commitments to the people and culture with a slight emphasis on environmental sustainability. The Home Depot's ESG report focuses on people and environmental sustainability as well, but their focus is more towards the environment. Bank of America's ESG report is mainly just centered around environmental sustainability. While all three companies place a heavy emphasis on their environmental sustainability initiatives, it is also clear that they have different goals to achieve this sustainability. Tesla focuses on its supply chain through responsible material sourcing and reducing cobalt content in the supply chain. Tesla also focuses on product impact by looking at affordability, usage, safety features, and cybersecurity. These goals are different from those of the Home Depot and Bank of America because of the type of product that they provide. Since the Home Depot is a part of the retail industry, it makes sense that their other goals include strengthening the community through community partnerships, supplier diversity, and the Home Depot Foundation to create strong relationships and connections that allow the company to thrive. Since Bank of America is part of the financial services industry, it is important for them to focus on economic and social progress more than the other companies. Bank of America places an emphasis on helping low and moderate income families and neighborhoods by providing jobs and helping them to financially grow. Overall, ESG goals and frameworks appropriately vary based on industry. Since ESG reporting and financial reporting have overlap with how environmental factors tie into future projections, it is highly important for our financial reporting to be reliable. If a company is providing reasonable and accurate baseline information in its financial statements, then the ESG reports could be incredibly valuable to investors when it comes to decision making. A reliable ESG report can be a great resource for investors if they are also acknowledging the importance of how it is affected by the estimates and projections provided by the company's financials. However, if a company is not being truthful in their projections and are including bias in their ESG reports, then investors could be falsely led to believe that a company is worth investing in. Investors who are not digging deep while doing research could be rudely awakened by the lack of authoritative guidance on ESG reporting and the information that is being left out by management. Next, we are going to outline 3 specific suggestions for ESG reporting moving forward. Our first suggestion is to drill down by industry using the existing SASB framework. To paraphrase Warren Buffett, ESG reporting standards cannot be a one-size-fits-all concept due to the diversification amongst companies and industries. For this reason, we believe the best option moving forward is to adapt the standards published by SASB. SASB released these standards after being merged with the IIRC to form the Value Reporting Foundation. This merger was finalized in 2021 with the hopes to provide investors and companies with a comprehensive corporate reporting framework for communicating about integrated thinking, intangible values, and long-term value creation. The very specific drill down on which standards apply to specific companies and situations allows a diversified company to easily identify which standards apply to them. The SASB standards have already been implemented by a significant number of the largest companies in the world. As you can see in the graph, in the United States alone, 65% of the companies in the S&P 500 have adopted these standards, and over 50% of the Global 1200 have adopted the framework as well, according to a study done by the VRF. This widespread implementation of SASB standards provides insight as to how the largest companies in the world view them. Because most companies have already voluntarily adopted these standards, it is a good starting point for the SEC to establish a single set of authoritative guidelines. The implementation of a single set of authoritative standards then calls into question the auditor's role in providing assurance in auditor reports. Joey will now discuss our suggestion for what the auditor's role should be in relation to ESG reports.
In terms of an auditor's responsibility for ESG reporting, we have decided to take an approach similar to that of a review. Rather than extending the reach of the audit to obtain a high level of assurance on ESG-related information, we suggest that auditors test the information for completeness. By focusing on completeness, this would provide limited assurance that the ESG disclosures are free of material misstatement and fairly represent the company's current standing. Completeness would entail beginning with source documents such as identified risks, threats, and opportunities, and tracing them to the ESG disclosures. Depending on the completeness of the information, the auditor would then modify the report, including an other matter paragraph, specifically mentioning they have reviewed the ESG disclosures and provide limited assurance. This approach provides investors with trustworthy information while also ensuring companies are fairly presenting their current and future outlook in relation to ESG topics. On the next slide, Emily will give an example of how Tesla might utilize SASB's Human Capital Bulletin to develop a relevant and reliable ESG-related disclosure that the auditors would assess for completeness.
This chart is a condensed version of SASB's materiality map. Both visuals show a very specific drill down on which standards apply to specific companies and situations and can assist a diversified company in easily identifying which standards apply to them. First, we need to identify which sector the company is in, as well as the industry within the sector. Tesla is considered a road transportation industry with the transportation sector. The next tier includes the sustainability dimensions, which are broad themes used to describe the corporate activities that can maintain or enhance a company's ability to create value. These sustainability dimensions include environment, social capital, human capital, business model and innovation, and leadership and governance. This is where companies must determine which activity is most valuable to display in their ESG report. In this example, it is the human capital dimension. The next tier includes the general issue categories, which are themes that are not industry specific that allow different industries and sectors to be comparable. The GIC for this example is consumer safety. To take this even further, the next tier represents disclosure topics such as automated driving safety. This is a more industry-specific topic compared to the general issue categories. These topics generally have a financial impact on companies within that industry. Finally, the last tier represents the accounting metrics that are used to measure the performance of each disclosure topic. For example, the fatality rate of drivers in the road transportation industry. Each of these metrics have technical protocols to ensure that the information is as accurate and comparable as possible. In essence, this is a way for companies to turn qualitative data into quantifiable information. Thank you for your time.